Hello everyone. This video is going to show you how to update the LCD Marquee controller software to version 2.0. So this is, if you looked at my previous video and if you set up a second Raspberry Pi as an LCD Marquee controller for your RetroPie, this will update that initial version to version 2.0 with some various updates to that software. So just to quickly go over what these updates will be, essentially version 2, I added a splash screen image that will appear on boot up, and this splash screen image can be replaced with your own custom image. I made changes to the command line text and config text files that will clear all text when booting up, or most of the text when booting up, and disable the rainbow splash screen on boot up. The default marquee or default system marquee display that displays on the marquee can either be an image or a video, and the video will go in a continuous loop if it is a video. The default marquee image or video will be automatically displayed on boot up. So before in the initial version of this software, it'd come up to the command prompt and you'd have to start a game for the image to show up on the marquee, the LCD marquee. In this case, that image or video will automatically start. I rewrote some of the code to explain what the code is doing, and I also put a running version of what updates were done to that code. Also, a new a program called FIM is now used to display the images instead of the FBI image program. Also, OMX Player is installed, and this is used to play video. A number of services were created to display the splash screen, marquee images, and the marquee video when they're played. So these are some of the updates that have been done. So these are going to be the materials needed to perform this update. The first thing you're going to have the initial release of the LC Marquee controller software set up on a Raspberry Pi, and to install that, you can watch my YouTube video at the link that's in the embedded in this video. That's listed right there. It's a tinyurl.com. I shortened the length of the URL so you could just type it in pretty quickly and go to it. Now, you more likely, if you're watching this video, you already have installed the LCD Marquee controller software and you want to upgrade. But if you're wanting to go to version 2.0, you'll have to go to that video first to install the initial release, then come back here and then upgrade to 2.0. In the future, I plan on making these installs to where it's only one install, so that you can use that install to either upgrade or do an initial install, so you won't have to go back to previous versions to update to the latest version. But for right now, I just don't have the time right now to do that. So for right now, you just have to install the initial version in 2.0, but again, later versions, you won't have to do that. You'll also have to have a Windows computer. You're going to use the Windows computer to copy files to your Raspberry Pi that has the LCD Marquee controller software on it, and to run the script to install to update the software on it. Also, internet access, of course, to download the files. And then WinSCP and PuTTY installed. Again, WinSCP will be used to copy the files to your LCD Marquee controller Raspberry Pi, and then PuTTY is going to be used to remote into it to run the terminal so that you can run the command to run the update. Also, one final note before we begin, please back up your SD card on your device. I've tested this installation a number of times and I haven't run into any problem. I've tried to correct any bugs or any issues, but you just never know, and you want to make sure you back up your SD card on your LCD Marquee controller Raspberry Pi. If it gets messed up, you just have to start from scratch. But again, it's best just to back it up and make sure that you have it backed up in case something does go wrong. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is download the LCD Marquee controller zip file with all the updates. So we're going to open up a browser window. So just open up a browser. I'm using Edge. So once you open it up, you want to type in the following web address, and it's listed on the bottom of the screen. It's going to be https://tinyurl.com/rapqdbu. And the slashes I'm using are forward slashes. So once you type that in, go ahead and enter. It's going to bring you to Google Drive, and you're going to see two files. You're going to see a zip file that's called LCD Marquee Update 2.0, and you're going to see a README text file. You don't need the README text file, we just need the zip file. So you're just going to click the little download file arrow right there in the left hand corner of it, and you should get a prompt to save it. If this was Google or Firefox, you may get a different window, but in Edge it's just going to ask you to download it. So we're going to do save as, and we're just going to save it to the desktop. Saving it to the desktop just makes it a little bit easier than to put it in a different folder. So save it to the desktop, and then once it's done, we can go ahead and close out of the browser, and that's it. So now we have the zip file downloaded. So now with the zip file on your desktop, we're going to extract that. We're going to extract the zip. So we just right-click on the zip file, and we're going to go to Extract All, and just take the defaults here. Just click the Extract button, and now you're going to see a folder on your desktop, or a folder may already be open. So just go ahead and double-click on that folder, and this is what you're going to see. So you're going to go into you're going to double click on it until you see a folder called Install Files. This is the folder that we're going to copy over to our LCD Marquee monitor Raspberry Pi. So now we're going to connect to our LCD Marquee monitor Raspberry Pi. So we're going to open up the program called WinSCP. Now, if you followed the directions in the first video on the initial install of this, you should already have this installed on your computer. But if not, follow the link that's embedded there to go ahead and download and install WinSCP. So once you got it installed, go ahead and open it up. And now for the host name, you're going to type in the IP address of the LCD Marquee monitor Raspberry Pi. And for the username and password, the default username is Pi, and the password is Raspberry. Now, if you change this password, of course, then type in that password. And then once you have your credentials typed in, click Login to connect up to the Raspberry Pi. Now, when it opens up, you should see up here on the top here, it says Home Pi. That's the directory you went into, and you should see two folders. You should see Bin, and you should see Marquees. So what you're going to do is you're going to drag that Install Files folder, and you're going to drop and drag it over to the Home Pi folder on the folder that you opened up in WinSCP. So just drop and drag that, let it copy over those files, and once those files are copied over, we're going to go ahead and close out WinSCP, as we don't need this right now. So go ahead and close out of it. If it says terminate session, go ahead and click OK to that to terminate it, and then we can close out of the other window as well. So now we're going to go ahead and connect to the LCD Marquee monitor Raspberry Pi, and this time we're going to connect up using PuTTY, so that we can get to a terminal window, and then we can run the command to install the updates. So again, you should just double click on PuTTY, and again, if you follow the directions on the initial install, this should already be installed. But if you haven't, if you look at the embedded link below, you should be able to type that in in your browser, download it, and install it. And once you have it installed, go ahead and double click on PuTTY. And again, for the host name, we're going to type in the IP address of the monitor Marquee, or LCD Marquee controller Raspberry Pi. So we're going to type that in and click open. And you may get an error you may get a message of a security alert with the potential security breach. That's fine. Just click yes to that, and then it's going to ask you to log in. Again, login is Pi, and the password default is Raspberry. Unless you changed it, then you type in the password that you changed it to. Make sure I type it in right, and there we go. And I just maximize the screen. So now we're going to type in the command to run the update. So to type in that command, you're going to type it in exactly as it appears on the screen below. So you're going to type in sudo space / usr /bin /python 3 space /home /pi /install files, all one word, /bin /lcd marquee, make sure I spelled that right, setup.py. Once you have that typed in, hit enter, and it's going to start the process. Now you'll notice that it failed to stop 2 services, and that's fine because those services aren't installed yet. So it's copied over some files, but once it's going to get to the point where it says copy new default.png file. It's going to ask you if you want to replace that file. In some cases, if you've already installed this, you may have created your own default PNG file, and this is the default image file that's displayed on the Marquee when you exit a game, or you don't have a custom image for your ROM to display on the Marquee. And again, you may have already created this, so you may not want to replace it. So if you have done that, just select no. But if you just want to replace it with the newer one, select. I'm going to select Y to replace it, and then hit enter. And then it's going to continue on. And at this point, it's going to start running some updates, and the updates are going to take a while to run. So I'm going to pause the screen right now while these updates run, but it's going to update and it's going to install OMX Player, and then after OMX Player, it's going to install FIM, which is the newer newer program that will display the images. Now these updates will take anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on the speed of your internet connection to where it has to download the file. So just please be patient while the updates run. Okay, so the installation of FIM and the OMX Player are completed. But once it starts installing that, it does a few more things. Then it's going to ask you, it's going to tell you that it's going to edit the config.txt file. And it's basically states that it's going to install one line into that file. And that line that it's going to put in there is called disable_splash = 1. And this will disable the rainbow splash screen that comes up on the Raspberry Pi. Now, some of you may have already done this. That's why you have the option of, do you want to update the config.txt file? If you know you haven't edited this file before and you know that line doesn't exist, you're going to say yes. Otherwise, if you know you've edited that line, you're going to select no, so you don't have to overwrite it again. So in this case, but I'm going to select yes because I know that in this case it hasn't been updated. So I'm going to press Y and hit enter. And then it'll say that it's updated that config.txt file. Now the last thing it's going to ask you is, do you want to edit the cmd_line.txt file to display all text on boot up? Now again, if you've already installed the initial install, you may have already gone back and done this already. But this disables all boot up text that comes up, so you don't see anything. So but essentially it's a blank screen, and then the splash screen will come up. So if you've already edited this line to do that task, you would select no so it doesn't overwrite that command cmd line.txt file. But if you know you haven't edited this file yet and you want to disable alt text, select Y and hit enter, and that's what I'm going to do now. And now we're at the point where it's going to ask if you want to reboot or not. So in the lower right hand corner you should see a video that's showing my LCD Marquee test setup, and it also shows a computer running RetroPie. So essentially when I reboot the computer, you should see the LCD Marquee reboot, and once it comes up you should see the new splash screen boot up. You shouldn't see any text, and it should come up with the default image for the Marquee. So on the computer we're going to go ahead and select yes to reboot, and of course you're going to get an error message on the PuTTY side, so you're just going to go ahead and click OK and close that out. Now as you look at the video for the Marquee, you'll notice that there's no text showing up, and as you can see right there, it just displayed the splash screen, and that's the default. And again, you can go back later and change this to any image that you want. This is just a default image. So once it comes up, it has a few text, but that's going to be overridden by the default image. And there's the new default image. And again, the default image will be whatever you want it to. And if you selected no not to copy it, then you should see your custom default image there now. So if I go and select a game, I'm going to select Dig Dug because I know I have an image for that, so just to make sure everything works properly. And as you can see, it changed it to Dig Dug. And then I'm just going to wait for the game to start, and then I'm going to exit out of it. So, and when I exit out of the game, it goes back to the default image. And there we go. So we got that for right now. So now, as you know, one of the features is that you can, instead of having a default image, you can have a default video. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that default video now to show you what the default video would look like. Again, you'll have to provide your own video. This is a video I downloaded from the internet. So as long as it's in an MP4 format, that's all you need it to be. And it's just basically drop it in the folder, the Marquee folder. So we're going to open up WinSCP again, and then we're going to type in 192. Well, you're going to type in your IP address for your LCD Marquee controller, and again type in your username, type in your password, and let it connect up. I may have typed it in wrong here. Oh, there it goes. And I may have typed it in wrong here. So, nope, I got it. Okay, so essentially, so if you open up Marquees, now you'll also see a bunch of other folders here that were created. These are all the systems that match what are on the RetroPie. So if you, for example, if you're running 3DO, the 3DO folder has already appeared, so you can just open that up and drop your Marquees and Marquee file, image files in there if you wish. But anyway, we just want to, on the root here, you'll see your default image and your splash screen. So we're just going to drop our MP4 file in there. So I happen to have one here. I'm just going to rename this to default. Okay, because it needs to be named default dot, and then it has to be MP4 file. So I'm just going to drop and drag that under Home Pi Marquees, and it's going to take a few minutes for it to copy over. So I'm just going to pause this right now for that and wait for that to copy over, as it is about 90 megabytes large. Okay, so it completed copying over my MP4 file, as you can see. And basically, so how this will work is if the program sees that an MP4 is there as the default, that's what it's going to run. So it's going to display the video. If I rename this to something else, then it's going to run the default image, which is the default.png file. So again, as long as if it sees an MP4 there, that's what it's going to run. If it doesn't see an MP4 there, then it's going to run the default PNG file. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and reboot the LCD Marquee controller, Raspberry Pi. So essentially I'm going to go ahead and close this out again because we don't need it, and we're going to go ahead and run PuTTY and connect up the PuTTY again. Okay. Now you don't have to reboot this, but I'm just going to show you, I just want to show you what happens when it comes back up and it's going to start playing that video. If you didn't reboot it, you would see that the image is still, the static image is still there, and then when you go into a game, it will display, you know, your marquee, and then when you come back out, it would start playing the video. But so in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and execute the reboot. So again, in the lower right hand corner there, you should see video of my LCD Marquee and the computer running RetroPie. So at this point now, I'm going to go ahead and initiate the reboot, and you'll see that the LCD Marquee is going to reboot itself. And then at this point, you can go ahead and close PuTTY. And again, it's going to boot up, and it's going to go into the it's going to display the splash screen there. And then what should happen is, instead of displaying the default image, it's going to display the default, it's going to run the default video. And there it goes. And so that now the video will play in a continuous loop there. So once that, I think this video is like about 50 seconds long. So I'm just going to let this run for a moment to show you that it does actually loop. So we're just going to give it a minute to run here. And then it's almost done here. It should go out, and then it should restart itself. There it goes. So again, that video, so again, instead of displaying a default image, this is the default video that will pop up every time you exit a game, and it will play in a continuous loop. Now I'm going to go into a game here. Again, I'm just going to go into Dig Dug. And of course, once I go into Dig Dug, it should still show it should pop up the marquee. And then when I exit, it should start the video again. Instead of displaying that default image, it's going to run the default video. So I'm going to exit out again, and it's initiating the video. Now if I go into a game that I don't have a marquee image for, like I'm just going to go into Donkey Kong here, it's not going to do anything, and the video will keep playing. So if I go into Dig Dug, as you can see, the video just keeps playing. Because I don't have a ROM image there, and I don't have a default image or default video in the system folder, so it's just going to play that default video. And that is it. You are now upgraded to version 2 of the LCD Marquee controller software, and I hope this video was helpful. Please go ahead and watch some of my other videos. Again, if you have any suggestions or comments or problems, please post in the comments below. I'm open to suggestions on how to make this better. So please do so, and thanks for watching.